everyone. Welcome to another episode of Random Cloud Chats. In this episode, we're talking about our time as cloud engineers. How much money did we make? What did our day-to-day look like? What our onboarding process looked like? What our work-life balance looked like when we were cloud engineers. We also talk about layoffs at Twilio, Patreon, slow down hirings for Amazon. We talked about Microsoft Leap internship program. We talked about Microsoft investing in cybersecurity at community colleges. We talked about how Rishabh feels with the layoffs at Twilio. And then we end the episode with a bunch of shout outs and goodies there. So let's dive right in.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Random Cloud Chats, powered by Learn to Cloud. The Cloud Duo is back, and this is episode 9, where we're going to talk about what being a junior cloud engineer is like. So, we'll talk about our experiences when we were in our cloud engineering gigs, how we kind of entered it, and just our entire experience. I think you were a cloud engineer for a year and a half, right? And for me, it was 2 years.
Something around that.
Okay. So we were pretty close with our, tenure as cloud engineers.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we'll get into the, stories that we had during those job titles.
Yep, definitely. But as usual, before we get started, we got some things to cover. And I think people are going to find this week's mental health check in the news section particularly interesting because it definitely hits home, some of the news we've got. But as always, let's start with mental health check. I'll start with me because I feel like I don't have anything too eventful. But I think I'm at a 7, which is pretty decent for me. Getting back into routine. I made significant progress on stuff that was kind of frustrating me at work last week.
Okay.
So everything kind of like flowing in progress. My annual bonus hit the bank account. What was that?
Nice.
Like yesterday. So that's always nice. That's where I'm at. But more importantly, it's been quite the week for you. I guess maybe not full week, just like yesterday, right?
Yeah. I think I was doing pretty good until yesterday. I think.
Yeah.
It was a good week. I was excited about. So I guess we'll dive more deep into with the week recap. But the reason we are saying it yesterday played a huge role in my mental health being at 5 now. Is because we experienced layoffs at Twilio. So 11% of the Twilio staff was let go yesterday, and it was, I was surprised. There was no, there's no better way to put it. It's just how I feel right now. Started seeing a lot of social media posts about people who were impacted. So I'm just trying to deal with that, sending, as always, strength and love to the ones that were impacted. But again, it could have been me. So
yeah, we'll dive deeper into that because it's part of the news that we kind of care about this week and whatnot. But you're at a 5. Hoping the weekend is some time for you to take a step away. Even though I know you're traveling this weekend, right?
So it was a bit kind of a weird feeling about I have this event coming. What's gonna happen? Am I being laid off? Like how everything is gonna play or come into play. But we'll dive deeper into that in the news part. But speaking about weekly recap, before that news hit you, which was yesterday, what have you been up to? What are you working on? How's the travel prep going? Pretty good. Travel prep, I guess, because it's not as big trip that I had to New York. I'm gonna be there. It was gonna be one day, but then I have a lecture on Monday, and I'm like, I don't want to be traveling after because it'll be super late if I arrive in Boston, and then I also don't want to travel really close to the lecture time because if flight gets delayed or whatever.
You never know.
so yeah, that's why I'm flying out on Sunday evening, so that I can you know still deliver my lecture
Yeah.
online at my hotel, and then Tuesday is when the Twilio super class is in Boston. So the packing, it's as usual, not too much stuff this time to carry. But yeah, that's I guess the travel plans for me right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also mentoring at Hack the North, which is a hackathon here at University of Waterloo.
Oh, cool.
So that'll be going on from Friday. So today it starts today and goes until Sunday morning.
Are you going to this, or is it virtual?
Oh, I'm going.
Okay.
So we were so Twilio was considering sponsoring it, and we were having back and forth conversations around there, but that didn't work out. But fortunately, I did apply as a mentor and got selected.
Oh, cool.
So I'll be helping students if they have any questions when they're creating something creative. But yeah, so I'll be there on Saturday because Sunday I'm flying, so I won't be
Yeah.
there on Sunday.
Yeah.
And today too, today is supposed to be the opening ceremony, but I won't be attending it.
Yeah. All right. That should be a cool activity. Kind of gets your mind off things, and
Yeah, I think so.
it'll get you back to what advocacy is, and maybe help you focus on and reset and whatnot. Not trying to tell you that you need to like ignore the news or whatnot or anything like that, but kind of.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I've been trying to stay away from
Yeah. Blind.
Reddit, Hacker News, and
Yeah.
Blind.
No, I feel you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Decent week up until yesterday then. Curious to see how it goes with like the mentoring thing and Hack the North and travel and whatnot. But we'll hear about that next week. For me, like I mentioned, pretty good progress on a lot of work. I finally finished my developer template, Azure developer template. I'll have a video on the Azure developer CLI on my channel, hopefully next week.
Okay.
That's going to be fun. I think it's going to bring a lot of value to, especially to beginners. But yeah, it's just finding the time to make all these things, man. But this week, an interesting thing happened that I was not expecting. But I'm glad it happened for a reason that people might not sort of see at surface level. So I made a TikTok.
Yes.
I made like a 60-second TikTok, maybe less, and it was literally just
47 seconds to be exact.
Literally just me sitting in front, like talking, just essentially just being myself, right? And I talked like it was salary progression, right?
Yeah.
From 2014 to 2022, and it blew up. It's at 500,000 views. I think I gained like 5,000, 6,000 followers on TikTok, and then that turned into maybe like 300, 400 now subs on YouTube, followers on Twitter, connections on LinkedIn, everything. Because my AKA link, which is has
it's in your TikTok, right?
Yeah, and that sends to like my Microsoft developer advocate profile, and then it has also my links there. So I guess people were clicking on that and going to that. But I just think like with content, I was trying to focus so much on like doing more like day in the lives, like doing like figuring out different styles and whatnot. And then the reason why this TikTok was like, I guess, influential for me was it just reminded me like the best content that I make is the one where I'm just kind of just sitting in camera and just sharing experiences that I've been through. And that resonates as well with like my YouTube metrics too, because when I kind of just sit down and talk about like, oh, this is something that I encountered in my cloud career and whatnot, it seems to always do better as well. So people are really missing and wanting like real just stories about these kinds of things, and people are tired of like overproduced fake like
I think
stuff. So it was nice.
Yeah, we talked about this. Just to give more context to people. Gwen has been she didn't focus a lot on like growing TikTok. Because she's like YouTube is her go-to platform. And then we were talking about this, and I'm like, I've been posting the podcast shots, like the short form content on TikTok, and I have been tagging her, and she, doesn't reply or, doesn't like or doesn't comment. I'm like, So I kind of figured like she's not active on TikTok. She
Hmm.
probably has it uninstalled and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but we were having this conversation that, now is the era of where people don't, especially TikTok, I think people don't like well produced
Hmm.
videos where, you have great transitions and stuff.
Yeah.
They might do well if you're dancing or something, but if, talking about just like tech talk, I think it's called tech talk, yeah.
Tech talk. Yeah.
Uh, it's just us being brutally honest. I guess
Hmm.
people care about that more because I also feel like, especially with YouTube too, it's it's nice that you're seeing, that kind of metrics, like similar performance with your
Yeah.
YouTube too, that the organic kind of growth comes from you just being authentic and, just sitting down and recording yourself
Yeah.
rather than, like we did Day in a Life. I guess that does bring, a kind of general audience to the channel
Hmm.
because it's not tech specific.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, going back to that, I think people are just, done with, how those creators were 10 or like 5, 10 years ago, where videos were well produced
Hmm.
and then they would probably have to buy a course at the end. How there was a call to action is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say. No
Yeah.
hate, but I guess people are getting tired
People
of,
got tired of it. Yeah.
every YouTube video ending into like a call for action of them buying either ebook or a course.
Hmm.
But yeah, the videos were well produced, but I think now it's more, if you're authentic, more the people relate to you, I think more, well, the video does.
What one of the most common comments that I got on that TikTok was like, I'm tired of all these like tech TikTokers talking about
Yeah.
like total compensation and saying like, oh, I went to this 3-month boot camp and I made this much money, whereas like your journey is like an actual real one. Because the reality is that I didn't make the amount of money I make over like a year or anything like that. And this is what like one of the most like comments that I replied to was like, it took me 8 years or more, a little
Yeah.
more to get to where I'm at. It's not like an overnight success. I was very honest and like I started at $15 an hour. And some people
Yeah.
didn't even know that Apple stores pay $15 an hour back then when I started. I'm sure now it's like a little bit more and whatnot.
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
the amount of things that people like learned is like, oh, I can like work my way up in tech. It's going to take a while, but I can get there. And like they saw like, oh, that jump from sysadmin to training architect, like what did you do there? Or that jump from help desk to sysadmin, like how did you do that? Like people, the amount of information that people just don't know, and that a lot of these tech influencers take advantage of. They're like, oh, I can get views if I just say like I did this in months and now I make 6 figures. And like they're seeing like, oh no, like Gwen's legit, like she went through this, and this doesn't seem like
Yeah,
a
it's more,
quick
I
get
guess,
money.
realistic, right?
Yeah. And I think, I did my best to reply to as many people. And a lot of people, what was the coolest part, dude, was I had at least 10 people on Teams at Microsoft hit me up and be like, I found you on TikTok. Love what you're doing.
Yeah.
Would love to chat. And this week has been nothing but like coffee chats with colleagues and just talking about like salary transparency and talking about, oh, what do you do in
Nice.
advocacy and all these kinds of things. And I was like, I had no idea, dude, because like you were saying, I was like, I freaking hate TikTok because I genuinely do dislike short form content because I just don't think I can teach in a
Yeah,
way.
there's less context.
Yeah, I have
More,
yeah, you have to do like
kind of,
grab attention quick,
yeah.
and it's very gimmicky most usually, and especially with cloud, it's just, oh, get these certifications, oh, get these workshops, all these kinds of things. It's like I don't think I can bring the value that I want to bring, but when it comes to like these short stories, firsthand experience things, I think it works well there. So I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad it's bringing some traction towards the platforms that I do like do more long form content, but I still don't believe that short form content pushes to long form. Because when you think I have 500,000 views turned into 300 subscribers on YouTube, like that's terrible conversion rate.
Yeah.
And it's
I agree.
and
Um,
and that's one viral TikTok. Like how hard it's pretty hard to get a viral TikTok unless I like.
I am trying. I've been trying forever.
It's tough, dude.
It's tough, yeah.
I also like as soon as that happened, I left TikTok on my phone for like a day or two, and then it's been deleted since then because I don't want to. I don't want to.
Be sunk into Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to be like, oh, now I have to go in on TikTok. I'm like, no, I'll pick it up later when I feel like I have something significant. I have some ideas that I'll discuss with you offline.
Mm.
But the focus is still always going to be YouTube, because that's where I know I can provide value. If you sit down with me for a 10-minute video, I promise you I'm going to teach you something. If anything, TikTok is more so like inspirational, motivational kind of thing. But anyway, that was my interesting week recap. If y'all want to check it out, just Made by GPS on TikTok. But honestly, the YouTube video gives you more details than the TikTok can anyway. So I like how in your week recap, you put "I am alive."
So she's talking about the show notes.
Yeah, we have a Notion page where we share.
And that's why you might see me, not looking at the camera often. But I'm like, what should I put? I'm alive. I'm still at Twilio. So if people are, curious, because
people were asking you.
People were asking me. I wanted to get it. So Discord, I know Jeremy reached out personally. People were reaching out to me on Twitter. If how I was doing, and if they can make a connection or a referral and I'm like, thanks for reaching out, really appreciate it. I'm doing good, like I'm still at Twilio. I think I love this side of tech where
people looking out for each other.
People are kind. But other than that, I released Gwen's reaction to Moose Tape today.
Dude, that thing's
I was editing it.
That's gonna I was editing. Go off.
It outperformed any of the videos that I did in the past.
I meant to ask you about that. How do you feel about that?
I don't know. I feel like there's a connection with who I am. As my my first language being Punjabi, and my roots being from Punjab, I guess. There is a lot of I guess subscribers that are from the same region, and I think it also relates to there is more audience when you compare like a general video to a tech focused video.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. So for this week, I was editing that on Tuesday, I think, and then I'm like, I don't feel like releasing it on Tuesday, so I'll do it on Wednesday. So I had it scheduled for today.
Yeah.
And I did pretty good. So if you haven't, go check it out. Gwen reacts to Sidhu's Moose Tape album.
Part 1.
Oh, it's long. I was editing it and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do it 2 parts or 3 because there are so many songs.
2, 3, milk that, dude.
Yeah.
People were like, I was looking at the comments and I saw someone was like, oh, I can't wait for part 2. Hopefully there's a reaction to this song that I think we did do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh yeah, I think I remember seeing that title. So it's cool. I mean, that's the cool thing about having your platform somewhere. It's like you can just share these other parts of your life, and you never really know what people are going to resonate with you. But what's cool about that is like people are going to see like, oh, like this guy, he likes this music and he's in tech. Like I like this music and I kind of like tech. Like, oh, maybe I can like learn something from him, right? Because you never know how you're going to resonate with someone.
Definitely,
and kind of impact their lives. Yeah.
Especially like my Twitter, I think is more like it's strictly tech. And then, the other day I posted iOS 16 because I loved the lock screen, where you now have, especially if you're playing something, like if you're playing a song, you have the album art and whole lock screen changes the color to that album art.
Yeah.
And so I posted 3 screenshots, and like those are some like, bangers, like Punjabi bangers that are like on Billboard right now, like
nice
top charts. And some of my Twitter followers commented like, you listen to some really great music. So I haven't never explored that side or like made that side public of mine where and that's why the Hindi video did amazing. And I think that's where I have to kind of shift my focus because I realized like how much of my audience is, either Punjabi or Hindi speaking. So expect second video in Hindi next week. And I wanted to talk to you about this offline, but I guess we can talk about it on show. It's focused towards learn to cloud. So
you got to do that translation, dude.
I gotta do that translation. It's hard to type. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like I've never typed, my native language on an English keyboard. So I'll have to figure that out.
Oh, yeah. I see. Those are things that we take for granted. Even like details like that, like not having like the hardware needed.
I'll have to figure it out.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I mean, it's been a week for us to both just kind of be reminded of we don't have to do things that work for others.
Yeah.
That they won't necessarily work for us. But yeah, anyway, enough about us. Now into the section that everyone loves, which is called This Week in Tech News that we kind of care about. I feel like this week we really care about. It's not like we kind of care about. This week, I think there's a couple of things that I'm very excited to talk about, but also just, it hits home for you and then obviously for me as well because of that. But this first piece of news here I think was interesting. And I think I remember telling you this when we were talking about layoffs originally, maybe like a couple episodes ago. I told you, like, I am pretty sure Amazon is going to start doing this too. Like, there's no way that Amazon won't do it. It's just going to take them a while. I mean, and I'm like AWS, because AWS is tied to Amazon. Amazon makes so much money. So obviously AWS can afford to kind of just chill, keep things going as the usual. But now we're seeing, I think it was like a Wall Street Journal article that Amazon is slowing down their hiring. I don't think it's a freeze, and I don't think it's across all organizations, but they are slowing down the hiring, which is interesting.
It is.
The majority of money that AWS makes doesn't actually come from startups and like VC-backed companies. So I don't think it's like lack of like funding into VCs. I think it's just like just general economy growth slowing. So Amazon is like, let's chill for a little bit and slow down on hiring and whatnot and paying like these massive salaries and such. So I don't know, man. It might get a little messier.
It might
for the next couple of months, and I think I saw a tweet or someone were saying like, if 2023 we still see companies like on freezes, like these big tech companies on freezes, and that maybe moving into more traditional companies, we're going to be in for a real problem. So 2023 is right around the corner, dude. Like September's almost over.
Yeah.
So it should be pretty interesting, but yeah, I don't know. Have you seen anything on this? I don't think I've seen anything on like people who work at Amazon, like that I follow on Twitter and whatnot. But yeah, I wasn't surprised when I saw this.
Yeah, I think general subreddits that I stalk blind. I feel like there was a lot of boasting among engineers when it came to Amazon that Amazon is like on top right now because we are doing really good. We don't have hiring freezes. We didn't do any layoffs, so I guess that's changing now. And I did see like they were focused on growth even when companies were hitting pause. So you would see people telling, oh, I interviewed and I did a loop and this is how my experience is. And a lot of people started asking about referrals at Amazon because every other company was on either hiring freeze or they didn't get any news back after their interviews. So I think that sentiment will kind of change, and I guess like especially new graduates, like there will be more fear now as more companies are pressing pause. Because I think I'm seeing this, like I follow Google really closely, so I see news every day, blind posts, Reddit posts every day, or Hacker News that there's still a freeze, like, but it's not official.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know, but I'm not like hearing back anything. I did go through my entire loop, and it's been weeks.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a tough time, and as you say, like 2023 is almost what 4 months away.
Not even.
Yeah, less than 4 months now.
Yeah, dude.
So
Yeah, it's interesting landscape, like
mm,
like you mentioned, like Google's started picking up things again, but Amazon now is slowing down. So I don't know. We can't
yeah.
speculate too much, but
Hmm.
anyway, along the lines of layoffs, or freezing, I guess, comes layoffs. And we talked about Twilio, but we can dive into that one. Another company that I sort of wanted to talk about alongside this Twilio one was Patreon. I think they laid off, I don't know how much, like I think it was 17%, 18%, something around there. But
Okay.
a good amount of their
Significant chunk.
Yeah, of their staff. But a lot of Twitter discourse I saw around this was how the Twilio and the Patreon layoffs were handled, and severance packages being pretty good, and communication being transparent and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But you're a Twilio employee, so I
Mm-hmm.
kind of want to get your take on how did you just feel about like the layoff? Give me, so you know what? Actually, let me ask you it this way: you that day happens, and like you message me, like what was that day like? What did you feel? What, like, tell me about it.
Sure. Yeah. So I was kind of busy with work.
Yeah.
So I had cloud computing lab that I was gonna do or for the students as professor gig that takes away some, like, I was doing some research and what to do in the lab and stuff, and like because AWS changes their console every now and then. So I was going through that, and then I saw something in Slack, and then like right away, like something hit my inbox, and I'm like, okay, I'll look at it. So I gave it, like 10, 15 minutes because I went to get a coffee, came back, read the entire thing, and I'm like, okay. Um, hmm. So my thought process there was, the actual, like, how the communication was going to happen is within this email, like 60 minutes of this email, you should receive, an invite or an email if you're impacted by the layoffs. But the catch was that that was only specific to US. And if you're, for other global teams, it could be within next, 2 hours.
Oh my
But
goodness. Yeah.
there's also a catch there because, you have different labor laws in every different region. So
Yeah.
I don't know how layoffs work at, the other parts of the world. And I'm like, okay, so give or take 60 to like 120 minutes, I should expect an email if I'm laid off. I didn't want to, panic and like reach out to like either my manager or
Yeah.
director, VP, whatever, to just see if I was laid off or not. Because like I was in a fear that what if they were laid off? Like I just can't digest it, right?
Yeah, obviously.
Like it'll be hard for me. So I messaged you. I'm like, this is what's going on. And that time, like, I started seeing tweets from, U.S. Specific folks who knew they were impacted. So like LinkedIn and Twitter was kind of going off with, like, people sharing the news that they have been laid off, so they're looking for new roles and stuff. I'm like, okay, this is happening now. And then I feel like, so I told you, and then I talked to my dad, and this was like around 12, so like noon. I was about to have my lunch, and I talked to my dad, and he's like, "You'll be fine. Like, don't worry about it too much. Even if you're laid off, in the end, it's a business." And I'm like, "Yep." And he's like, "You already have a side gig, so you can, focus on that." I'm like, okay, yeah. And I was about to like join this lab period at 12:30, so I'm like, okay, I should focus on that. So I joined my lab period, and until then, like, I received a Slack message from a manager, and she's like, "How are you doing?" And I'm like, "Okay, I guess." Like, she's like, "If you need time off to process this and stuff, feel free to do that.
Yeah.
We were gonna do the same, and I'm like, okay. Like I've just been anxious, to know like who is impacted, even if it's me or my teammates. Like,
Yeah.
there's always that's what was going on in my mind. And then she says, you're not impacted, so you can kind of not think about that, but we'll know more as the time goes.
Yeah.
So yeah, towards the end, fortunately, like nobody from like my direct teammates were impacted. Um, but yeah, I think that like it was a lot of just a lot of things going on in my head. But I still had work because I had like 3 hours of college yesterday that I had to do. So I'm like, I was kind of occupied with that, and I tried to focus on channelize my energy towards that.
Yeah.
But it hits home, and we lost some amazing, talented people.
Yeah, dude. I mean, there's not really much more to say besides that. Like, there's something more real than almost or potentially being laid off, I guess. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more at Twilio, more at Microsoft. And you never know. You could be like your dad said. Like, it is a business.
Yeah.
But the good thing is, like, you have your inside gig. If it happened to me, I would go in on, like I mentioned last time. It was funny because that clip that you posted, that it was like me. I was like, oh, I kind of want to quit now, and then boom, it cuts off.
Oh yeah, and I'm like, Casey, like I think he did it on purpose because there's full context after that. Gwen says that I don't want to quit, but if things go south, and that was not part of the clip, so.
Yeah, it was funny, but yeah, I'm glad we both have these outlets, but more so of like the news aspect. I think, yeah, people were pretty, I guess, positive in terms of like the severance, which I know there was I think it was like 12 weeks pay or something.
12 weeks pay, and then
it was like
and additional weeks.
Yeah, there was stuff with
per year.
The stocks as well. I think there was help finding new jobs at both Patreon and Twilio. And apparently communication was done in a way that was better than how other companies have handled layoffs. So that's also important too. It sucks. Yeah, definitely. But I know those, at least knowing that you have those 12 weeks of pay is like, it's helpful. Definitely. Definitely helpful.
It gives you like a, especially for like longer tenured folks, I could imagine, like, because if you really see like you want to spend, like for me, if I want to be like, the best developer evangelist at Twilio and knows Twilio's like APIs inside and out, like I would imagine, staying here longer, and then all of a sudden you're hit with layoff news. It's kind of hard. So I think, the severance package was good, and also them considering the stocks vesting, which was gonna happen in November, to still consider, I think was better handled than some other companies that handle it.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, moving on to some more positive news. I have these two last ones in the realms of people educating themselves, getting into tech and whatnot. So the first one is Microsoft invests in community college cybersecurity education. So apparently across the U.S., a bunch of community colleges, Microsoft is providing, it says here, let's see, I think it's like the coursework and whatnot.
I see.
Like to upskill students in cybersecurity, because apparently by 2025, this is a stat that I found, there will be 3.5 million cybersecurity jobs open globally. And apparently there's not enough people to fill these roles. Microsoft has estimated that in 2021, the country had 464,200 unfilled positions that required cybersecurity skills. And the average salary for these jobs is $105,000 and then some entry-level roles can be around $150,000. That's crazy, dude.
It is.
What they're doing is they're collaborating with 181 community colleges across 44 states. in an attempt to provide accessible pathways into cybersecurity. So that comes with providing training to college faculty and offering financial support to about 25,000 students. And then the resources that they are providing are aligning with certification course materials first. So I'm assuming some of like the SC certifications and whatnot. But I think that's great. And if anything, this is news for people to upskill in cybersecurity. Even if you don't want to like fully focus on cyber, have it as like maybe like a niche, like, you know, cloud developer, but you're very aware of security, you know how to implement things in a secure way. I think that's like super important.
Yeah, I think like the numbers speaks for themselves, like, you know.
Heck yeah.
Because I think a lot of companies are shifting focus now, because I know Google did an acquisition 2 days ago. Like I saw something about it. It's a cybersecurity company that they acquired, and they acquired one when I was in Google. So like they're, you know, kind of shifting the focus because there's a need with, you know, tech being everywhere now. It's like we need to make these things secure. So in order to fill that gap, we need, you know, people that are trained in cybersecurity.
I think I might do a security cert before the year ends, just to be aware of it. But you can also go to Learn to Cloud Phase 5. We have an introduction to cybersecurity by Day. Shout out Day. Maybe I'll just do that. We'll see what's in there. Last one, talking about internships. Microsoft Leap cohort applications, I think, open sometime next week. But the
September 20th.
Yeah, and then they close like 2 weeks after. So if you do want to apply to that, get on that quick. Microsoft Leap, for those who don't know, is like a 16-week immersive program. You're put onto a team at Microsoft and you work with them. You build skills and whatnot, and you could potentially receive an offer after the internship to join the actual team. I know a couple of people who actually joined Microsoft because of this program, so it's not like a gimmick or anything like that. You're not paying for anything also. But I'm assuming like the application and like they're very selective and whatnot, so get on that as soon as you can. But yeah, I think this is awesome. I've been sending this to like a bunch of people. I know there isn't roles everywhere, but I know that you can attend things virtually as well. But if you receive an offer, you will have to move to whatever location like you're selecting.
Oh, so after you receive like a full-time offer.
Yeah, you potentially could have to move. But there's options to like attend all like the class and whatnot and the work virtually. So people get on that. Definitely get on that. It says here, classroom is virtual, but participants will have an option to select their on-the-job training as in-person, online, or hybrid. So people get on that.
Just to clarify, you still need, like, I cannot apply for this because it's in US. So you still need authorization in US. But
obviously,
that being said, you are not required to move if you're selected, like, for Leap.
Yeah, you need to be able to work in the US or where the position or like where the cohort is being hosted, of course. So, you know, for whoever that is, we'll have that in the show notes as well. But that's it for the news that we have for this week. We want to dive into the main topic. We're about halfway through the episode now. This is where we dive into our main topic. But yeah, I got a lot of questions about what it's like to work in help desk, which we have an episode on, what it's like to work as sysadmin, what it's like to work as a cloud engineer, and all these kinds of roles. So we kind of covered a little bit DevRel last episode. So I figured now let's do cloud engineer, which is a role that we both did. But I guess we could start talking about like how we got into it. For me, it was like there was a gig that I got promoted from after sysadmin. So with the sysadmin gig, almost immediately I started doing stuff in Azure, even if it was simple as like pulling like a cost report or things like that, or like resetting the password on a VM or something like that. I think as soon as I started my sysadmin gig, a couple of months into it, I was already doing Azure stuff. So then from that, like I think 9 months, where I made that automation project that I'm actually doing a whole live stream on for September, which you're going to be on, which is next week. I'm going to explain people about that project going on. After I did that project, I got promoted to junior cloud engineer. But yeah, it was a promotion that got me into it.
So yeah, for me, it's pretty similar to Gwen. I was promoted from, technical solution role to, or technical support role to cloud engineer. And I was kind of, I did cloud practitioner. I was already shadowing the cloud team prior to getting that promotion. I had a project which was kind of pretty similar to the cloud resume challenge we have now, but it was, you could consider it as a portfolio site, and there was a back end, front end, and different AWS services that were involved. So I had two designs of the same project. So one was more traditional, the other one was more kind of new, I guess. So yeah, that's how I got into it. There was an interview process involved, and I'm glad I had the project because that's what we talked about for like 20-30 minutes during the interview. So
yeah, there was no actual interview for me. It was more so like I had a great manager who was like just doing the negotiation and everything because he knew I deserved it. It took like a couple of actual months for it to like go through. But
you mentioned you were working in Azure as soon as your sysadmin gig started, right?
Yeah.
So I guess that's a I guess a good difference between like my situation where I had like no work related to cloud.
Yeah.
So I had to like ramp up. Yeah. And prove that I can work in cloud. Yeah.
Yeah, for me it was like I got a lot of exposure on the job because there was like so much to do, and they were like they needed more people, and I was young and had all the time in the world, so I just did overtime and whatnot to like get on anything that I could, and then make my case and whatnot. So I started 75,000 as a 75,000 base salary USD as a junior cloud engineer. I think people are always curious about that. And that was at that point it would have been 2018, so about 4 years of technical experience. So from 2014 to 2018. But that includes retail help desk, sysadmin, then promotion to cloud engineer, and then 75,000 salary at that junior cloud engineer role. Here another question I have is like, what were your first 3 months, which is typically like your what do they call it, the
probation?
Yeah, your probation period, your onboarding period and whatnot. So for me, it was immediately like because it was a promotion, and essentially my manager was the same and everything. It was just like kind of keep doing what you're doing, except a lot more cloud stuff. I remember there was no really onboarding because I was already doing the work. It was more so just adjusting the title and the money to match the work. So it was pretty great. It was pretty great for me because I hit the ground running. As soon as a cloud engineer, I felt like as soon as the role was official, I felt like super confident. Like I'm going to go to I started getting included on a lot more architecting meetings and software and engineering meetings, which is great because I was the cloud engineer in the room. Dude, I miss that. And like this is also another reason why for my next role I'm looking at getting back into like more traditional engineering roles because I miss those planning meetings so much. But I remember I was the cloud engineer in the role. So it's like, when we're talking about like cloud stuff, it's like, oh no, Gwen is here to talk about that. Like we have to run this stuff by Gwen. And I remember I kept the Azure infrastructure so clean, so organized. And like whenever someone did something like didn't follow a naming convention or whatnot, it upset me and whatnot. But
I miss those times.
It was also like frustrating there was so much to do, enforcing policies, governance, all these kinds of things. And like one person wasn't enough. And I think that if I had stayed at the role, I definitely would have built out a team, which would have been cool and whatnot, but it wasn't what I wanted to do at that time. But I didn't really have like a first 3 months. It was more so like the work just continues. But the respect, not that I wasn't respected, but people start to know like, oh, Gwen is the architect,
the person to go to when you are cloud. Dealing with cloud.
When it comes to cloud, like we're gonna have to include her on everything. So that kind of shifted for the team and whatnot, which was great. And that was like, I didn't really have an onboarding period.
Okay, my first 3 months were completely opposite to what Gwen's were. Lot of focus kind of shifted from supporting tickets to being in cloud, like AWS console, figuring out how our backend is designed, figuring out how our front end is designed, how we deploy things, how we work in coordination to development, like how do QA comes into play when development has shipped a product, QA tests it, they come to us, they need a QA environment. So like staging, so learning all these terms was like, kind of overwhelming for me because I had no idea.
Yeah.
So learning about the software development lifecycle and what tools were being used. So TeamCity, CloudFormation for IC, and then all the servers that we were using. So we were majority it was for front end it was Linux servers with Nginx,
Mm-hmm.
NHA proxy. So just getting used to that, I think, took like the first 3 months for me. Making a kind of a mind map in my brain
Yeah.
of, okay, the user comes in here, this is the service that's responsible, this is the server where
Yeah.
this service is running,
Learning.
and then you map that.
Yeah.
So I think that was my
Your
3 months, and also like a lot of shadowing, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
because I know we did like 2 or 3 deployments within the first like 40 days. And I think like by third deployment, they were like, you want to do it? I'm like, okay. But I would have, constant questions on like,
Yeah.
if I'm doing this right or wrong? And then they would deliberately tell me that do it wrong so that, you know how to get out of that situation.
Mm.
But yeah, I remember, so like after like 3 months or 4 months, I was, part of cloud meetings, design meetings, or like architecting. I remember like after like I think 5 months, I kind of like was whiteboarding a solution
Oh, sweet.
to a new service that we were gonna bring in.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember that feeling when there's a meeting going on and then people are like, oh yeah, we have a cloud engineer like who wants to take this problem, and I'm like, okay, I'll take this, and then kind of whiteboard a solution with all the services that AWS had to offer, and
Yeah.
then kind of just discussing which is right, which is wrong. So I missed that.
Yeah, definitely. The whole architecting part is just like
Yeah.
some of the coolest stuff ever. This is also why I recommend people go for roles that are at smaller companies, because there's no way I would have progressed the way that I did in my career from
No.
like that jump from junior to sysadmin to junior cloud engineer if it had been at a larger company. I don't think so, because just being so close, because having such a small team, we're at like 50 employees there, having such a small team and immediate access to the data team, to the dev teams, to the ops teams, to the sales team, all those areas. Even when it came to, because there was in the energy industry, so we had experts like energy experts, like because that whole sector is just, there's just so much calculations and so much that you need to understand
Yes.
about the markets and whatnot. But when you're developing solutions, there are certain things that you need to understand. So just being able to go and ask like, hey, can you explain to me how this works? Like, hey, you can explain to me how the bidding works. You can explain to me how like markets opening and closing and all that. Because it's like the stock market, but for energy. And we would have people who were just like experts at that kind of stuff, so you could sit down and just learn to make sure your solution is actually doing the right thing and whatnot. So
Optimized to
that
that.
was
Yeah.
so cool. And we had people who were like senior engineers that had like 20 years of .NET experience. And I remember like Blazor's server side was relatively new when I was put on a project, and then the senior engineer had built out a template where it's like, oh, if you want to start creating a Blazor server side project, this template kind of gets you started. And it had like a lot of like the wiring and the data access stuff, and he had handed it to me. He's like, all right, build stuff off this. And like that's not something that you can find. I mean, it might be something that you can find in other places, but just having like the one-on-one interaction with like, oh, I got stuck here, can you help me out? And then they would like be willing to help. Like this is, big tech, working in big tech is great. Larger companies is fantastic, but I just think early on at being in that smaller size company was just such an impact for me.
Definitely.
And it's also why I like enjoyed the junior cloud engineer role so much. And then later they got bigger, they had an acquisition, whatever.
Oh,
business is business.
It's the same. Yeah.
But that 2 years that I was there is just amazing. Just I'm so grateful for my time there.
I totally relate to that. I think, like, the way I learn things, I wouldn't be able to learn if it was for big tech. We were 40 people. Like, I was able to, again, pretty similar scenario. Like, we had an engineer who was there for like 10, 12 years. He built the entire ISC module for CloudFormation, and I could like have one-on-one time with him. And then when I was about to build my stuff, and he's like, oh, just use this off, and like you can just get rid of the chunk that you don't need and still use this template. So
Yeah.
no, I totally get it. But yeah, so when did you start like feeling comfortable in
Right
the
away, dude. Because
yeah.
I had the benefit of being promoted, and also the other thing was like, after a year at just the company, I knew everyone, and everyone knew my work ethic, and I knew that I could figure anything out, and people knew that I could figure anything out when it came to like the stuff that I was doing. So also being in a role and at a place where you are respected is just game changer, right? I have that. I definitely have that now still at Microsoft, but there have been roles that I didn't have that, and like, it's almost like you can't do as like fulfill your potential because you don't have the right support and right whatnot. So getting promoted, going into the like official cloud engineer role, I was on top of the world because like I know what I'm doing, or I know how to figure it out, and people knew that and matched my energy and whatnot. So I was immediately comfortable. It was as like when the merger happened and kind of priorities went different areas, and like the focus was different, the stuff that we were working on was different. That's when I started to feel like, all right, this isn't something that I'm comfortable with anymore, because and not in a good way, like, because changes are great, but when changes come, you have to sort of analyze to see if it's something that's worth your time.
True.
But like essentially my entire time there was, except for the last couple of months, was it's just like comfortable, challenged, and like I know what to do and I got this.
Nice.
How about you?
For me, if I'm completely being honest, I was not comfortable up until there was this one point I was on call. I was newly put on call, and prior to this, I had on-call incidents, but I was not able to solve them myself. And this day, I had this crazy complex issue. Received an on-caller at 2 a.m. like alert, and then I started working on it, and I was able to solve it. I think that's when things clicked. I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing here. I think, I don't know, it was just, you could say ego boost or a confidence boost. Now,
Yeah.
after that incident, I think like was more outspoken in meetings. Like, I would take a lead on a project. I would speak of, okay, yeah, this, like, I would question people on making design decisions when it came to, cloud architecture. So
Yeah.
I think that was the point for me, when I felt like more, okay, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Alongside that, like you mentioned being on call, like I know people are curious, is like work-life balance. And like this is one of the like questions that I got the most on like that TikTok was like, what's your work-life balance? And it's changed. And I think earlier on in my career, which the cloud engineer was sort of like early on, like with work-life balance and how much I did work and how much you did work, like there's on-call and stuff like that. I didn't do any on-call for my cloud or sysadmin gig.
Okay.
Except for maybe a couple of weekends where we had migration projects and whatnot. But that was like not like the norm. I know it was something, you were on a rotation, so you were doing it like what, every like once a month or something?
Oh no. So twice a month.
Okay.
Yeah, every alternate week. And then I think that was for like, yeah, majority it was twice a week. Early on when I,
Twice a month.
got the role, it was, oh, sorry, twice a month. Sorry.
Twice a week would be crazy, dude.
Yeah. But you were on call for the entire week. So like 2 weeks in a month, you were on call.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I meant. Yeah. So for you were on call for the entire week, and then you get 1 week break, and then you were on call again.
Dude. Yeah.
So that was the majority of my experience working in this role. I think when I joined, like the first 4 or 5 months, or first 3 months, I was not on call. After that, when I went on call, we were 3 employees, so it was, I will be 1 week on call, and then you had 2 weeks of break.
Yeah.
So it was divided among 3 people, and then that person left, so we were only left with 2 cloud engineers. So it was every alternate week. But we also had like weekends and stuff where we would do like SQL migrations or some big migrations, updates and stuff. But yeah, work-life balance was, I think, like I had, you have that hunger of learning so many things.
Yeah.
And that's why I think I usually would work, like, I would be in the office for like 8 to 9 hours, and I would work at least like 5, 6 hours. And I think that has changed over time now. Like I usually work around like full focus work. I usually do like 3 to 4 hours now,
Mm-hmm.
and no on call. So I think I don't miss being on call at all.
Yeah, I can imagine what that lifestyle is like. It's
Yeah,
you're
I
in,
think my kind of like sleep.
got
Like
messed
I
up.
used to sleep like a baby first,
Mm-hmm.
and now like if I hear anything, I was talking to Gwen. Like if I hear a little noise, because I
You're
am
up.
prone to like waking up and like acting on
Mm-hmm.
things. Um, I'm still in that mode, so I wake up really easily now.
Yeah, for me it was like the same because it was early on in career. I was just working as much as I could.
Yeah.
If I could do more, I would do more. Like come in earlier, stay late, whatever. I would
Mm,
do. Then towards the end of my tenure there, I was like, kind of like doing more like remote and that whatnot.
yeah.
And then COVID hit, and there was like every was like real remote. So
Hmm.
yeah, but earlier definitely wasn't the best work life balance. But that was an intentful.
By choice.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
intentionally making that decision because I knew that I wasn't gonna get that opportunity any other place, and I
Okay.
had
Yeah. Yeah.
such a great manager that he made the work like very enjoyable.
Yeah. Mm,
So it
mm.
was always a pleasure to like when we got one-on-one time to just sketch something out, figure something out. So yeah, work-life balance not the best, but it's kind of I feel like yeah, if you don't do things to respect your own work-life balance, no one else will. So it was definitely intentional. Um, yeah. All right. We talked about on-call. Um, we could talk a little bit about like what your day-to-day look like. I feel like that might be the last question we can fit in here because we're going a little long.
Yeah.
But for me, it was the first couple of, so there was this stand-up every morning at 9, usually about 15
Mm,
minutes. And then after that, we had um, any other meetings that we needed to do would happen usually earlier in the day. And then that was also the time that I would fit in emails, and I would look at any alerts, or like I'll check in on our dashboards and our monitoring and whatnot just to make
mm.
sure things are normal. If there's anything urgent to address, it would be the first thing in the morning as well.
Okay.
But that was pretty much what the mornings to about lunchtime were just meetings, alerts, emails, monitoring, just kind of like making sure everything's good. And then I would have lunch usually, and then pretty much the rest of the afternoon was focus work and whatever like project I was working on. So if it was deploying infrastructure, if it was figuring out any kind of cloud project, the majority of the afternoons were spent working on that, and sometimes meetings too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it's pretty similar. We had like like a big stand up, so like from 9 to 9:30
Mm-hmm.
because there was cloud, QA, and developers. So we had like all three teams doing a stand up in a meeting room. That was at 9 to 9:30. So I would usually be at office at 8:30
Mm-hmm.
and have my laptop and like screen set up and stuff.
Yeah.
Get myself a coffee before the stand up. After that, you know, either I would be chatting with someone
Mm.
for like extra 5-10 minutes before going to my desk, or someone stopped me or whatever. So I have that conversation about if there is a ticket or specific to cloud, because we did receive a lot of customer escalations
Yeah.
that could be potentially a cloud issue, like something in our infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
So we would have that open kind of conversation after the stand up, because the way it was that, so we would go from stand up to like our desks, and there was support in between. So
Mm-hmm.
we would talk to support folks and stuff. Back at my desk, going through same like emails, dashboards, specifically Jira, I think, because that's what we use for managing tickets, escalations from support and stuff like that. So if there is anything that's higher priority, needs our attention right away, we'll work on that. Otherwise, clean up, prioritize if anything new has come up.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was almost like would be lunchtime, so go for lunch, come back, and I think that's when focus work happens. So like from 1 to like 4:30.
Yeah.
So after in the morning we have prioritized all the tickets. Each one of us would pick one, or if I'm already working on a project, I won't even pick like a Jira ticket, so I would keep working on whatever the project I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
My main focus, I think, especially related to cloud projects, was ISE and CI/CD, because that's
DevOps.
where,
Yeah.
DevOps, that's where our focus is, and that's how I was able to transition into DevOps
Mhm.
easily. Is they're like, you already worked on this, but we didn't have a DevOps, like a dedicated DevOps team. So me and my colleague, that was our like, especially for me, I think that was like my baby project that I, was really close to me and
Yeah.
worked on it every day, kind of thing.
Yeah. For me, it was more cloud developer focused. Like I remember doing
Hmm.
a lot of, figuring out how to get data from our SQL databases into like
Yeah.
Azure, using it was primarily .NET. A lot of the CI/CD, like all of the DevOps, was primarily taken care of by my manager. Unless there were
Okay.
solutions that I built from scratch, then I would implement the DevOps. So like my automation projects and whatnot were implemented by me, like pipe ups and pipelines and all that.
Yeah.
Were by me, but um, anything that was already existing or systems in place, that was all kind of about like my manager. So I didn't really do much of that, but for me it was primarily like cloud developer. So like a lot of function
Okay.
stuff, a lot of like data factory stuff.
Hmm.
I'm trying to remember what else. There was some infrastructure like networking kind of things that we did later on, but I didn't have too
Hmm.
much hand in there. Deploying like VNets and stuff like that later on into like towards closer to like the merger or after the merger maybe, because it was like integrating their systems with ours and whatnot. But it was like mainly cloud developer focus, which is why now I'm a cloud developer advocate.
Yeah.
But it was what I like the most, because I truly do enjoy programming, but I
Hmm.
enjoy programming when it's like for cloud native technologies, right? I don't
Okay.
like desktop applications. I don't like mobile
Makes sense.
applications. I don't like, yeah, I'm primarily like back end kind of stuff, automation process stuff like that, and I got to do a lot of that with that gig. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, we had similar schedules. We did also have a ticketing system for, if people needed like, oh, I need this VM deployed, I need this thing deployed, like, oh, I need to test this thing, can you check this out?
Yes.
Or this VM's hung up, whatever, like stuff like that. Like, oh, I can't get into this. Oh, I lost my password for this. I lost my. Can we create a user and AD for this? Like stuff like
Yeah.
that. We did have like, so I would fit those in, however I could, whether that be earlier in the day or like sometime when I needed to take a break from focus, like deep focus work. But there was like no set process. I was just like find ways to fit it in.
Yeah, I guess it is different when you have like a team,
Mhm.
and then you want to manage workload, and you know that there will be, so our a lot of the escalations that we received were from support and were customer impact.
Mhm.
So that's why I think there was like we also received people saying, oh, I lost the access key to my VM. So
Yeah.
those were like internal tickets, but then we also had like, customer impact tickets, which impacted our customers. So
Yeah.
I think those were our priority ones. Yeah.
I totally forgot we had a data center based in, I think it was in the south somewhere, Atlanta, I believe, and we had a team managing that, external team, like a partner. And I remember we
Okay.
had weekly meetings as well with them because we were slowly migrating stuff into Azure, and I became the person who was like overseeing the stuff that would be in Azure. I remember those were a big part of the meetings too, because I remember a lot of frustration was because obviously these partners, they want to keep you in their data center, so they'll tell you like,
Yeah.
oh no, you can't do that in
It's
Azure,
tough
or it's too
conversations you have to
difficult.
have with them.
So a lot of my work was like researching, like, no, we actually can't do it. Let's do it like this. Let's do it like that. Let's move this into that and whatnot. Yeah. So, and I had a lot of meetings, at least one weekly, about migration stuff too. And it's kind of being the point person for that, which is really cool. I didn't really end up happening my time there, and I kind of sometimes I do feel like, oh, I should have waited till that happened. But yeah, it's like cloud engineer is such a generic term. It's like you're just working on cloud to whatever extent.
Yeah.
I remember developing a full Blazor application as well that was supposed to be like an internal portal for people to like view SQL data without going into like the SQL databases, to like
Interesting.
update credentials, to view monitoring data from like the automation processes that I had made too. That's how I learned Blazor. Which I have a Blazor session coming up in the end of October, people. So that's going to be good.
Nice.
But yeah, it was definitely the most impactful role that I've had. And the most fun, the most challenging, the one that I learned the most out of. And I, at one point, will return to some kind of engineering, because it's different. It's different than what we do now.
It's different,
right?
yeah.
It's definitely different what we do now. But anyway, I think we answered like a bunch of questions there. We gotta wrap this one up, but we got some community shout outs. We have like a question here that relates a lot to what we were talking about, but the question is from someone who DM'd me on Instagram saying, I don't like coding, but I want to get into cloud. Is there any way that I could do it without coding? I think if you want to get into the technical side of cloud, there's no way that you can 100% avoid coding. You need to be at least familiar with something like Bash or PowerShell. I would even say like if you can be familiar with Python, at least familiar. I'm not telling you to develop full-on applications, in like full stack applications and whatnot, but like know how to use a programming language or a scripting language to get stuff done in the cloud. Like I don't think you can avoid that unless you're in like cybersecurity. But even there, a lot of toolings and whatnot do require you to know some programming. So I just think so. If you want to get into the engineering, to the technical side, like I don't think you can avoid it. Yeah, I think we share that same answer and opinion from there. So that's the question shout out of the week. Shout out to you for asking that. We got a content shout out. So Savannah, who is the PM on the Azure Developer CLI tool, which is AZD, tweeted out that the September 2022 release now supports Terraform as the infrastructure as code option, or as one of the infrastructure as code options for the Developer CLI, which I think is awesome. Prior to this, it was just Bicep. I know they're also thinking about supporting Pulumi. I don't know if it's in the works yet, but there's a GitHub issue that you can go and vote on. But the fact that it's not supporting Terraform, I think is awesome. And it's just going to make more templates, more community engagement, more projects for people to get started with just one command. So I think that's pretty sick.
I'm probably going to look into it.
Yeah, definitely. AZD up. And then we've got Discord shout out. I try to highlight people as much as I can because I think we have such an awesome community. And I wanted to shout out CJ, who's been answering a bunch of questions. I see CJ active every single day there, answering career questions, answering tool questions, answering experience questions and whatnot. So thank you for that. It helps make the Learn to Cloud Discord and community in general just a lot more useful and a lot more friendly and less intimidating for people. So I really appreciate that. I don't know if you have any shout outs in any of these areas that you wanted to add.
For the event shout out, like we talked about, the Amplify Hackathon and the Serverless September, so they're still going. Like they'll keep going until the end of September. For both. So I think AWS Amplify Hackathon is great to get hands-on experience. And then Serverless September, Gwen has been doing amazing live streams. As she said, we'll be discussing her great project on September 21st.
Check us out. Like this episode's going to release on Monday and our stream will be on Wednesday. So check us out. We're going to be spending an hour just hanging out. Kind of like the same vibe, this casual vibe, just leadership talking, but more specific to just cloud serverless projects. That's gonna be great. But yeah, I think that's it. We got everything.
All
right, see everyone in the next one.
Peace.